Mallory herself was a competitive swimmer before she was paralyzed from the waist down. That happened during her senior year at high school near St. Paul, Minnesota. She was in the hospital when a routine treatment for back pain went wrong. And just when she was beginning to accept she'd never walk again, her sister heard about a meet nearby where Paralympic swimmers would be competing.
I had just gotten out of the hospital, weeks before, and I was figuring out what this all meant for me. During the bench test, it's like a physical therapy assessment. You're asked, no matter what your function level is, to attempt to move every different muscle group in all these different positions. That whole process has always been very, very hard on me because when they get to the legs, you're literally laying on a bench, and there's moments where they'll pick your leg up and they will release it and drop it and just see how it reacts. And as a paraplegic, it's kind of one of those things where I know that my legs don't work, but seeing how my body reacts when someone drops my legs from being up in the air like that and seeing them just kind of flail around like jello is such an emotional and mental mind game. I thought of all the things that my coach told me the past 4 years, and I tried to do just that. And I remember hitting the wall, and at the games, there's lights on the blocks. If you win, you get 1 light, silver, 2 lights, bronze, 3 lights, and anything after that, there's no lights. I saw the block, and I saw 1 light go off.
My salvation lies in your
It was all over in about 30 seconds. At no time in the race did the announcer even mention Mallory's name. That's how quickly she ripped through the other swimmers to win the gold medal.
They brought us in, and when they announced our names, and then when the national anthem played, you see that flag raise. That is why athletes go into 2016 and 2020.
Gold medal and Paralympic champion, representing the United States of America, Mallory Weggemann.
The gold medalist from lane 2, Mallory Weggemann, qualifying in 32.01, storming home in 31.13.
How are you guys doing? Good. Awesome. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm incredibly excited to be here. My manager is a 2001 grad, so that's kind of the small world Canterbury connection. But I got the chance to come in the fall and see campus and meet a couple of the swimmers, which I'm sure are in here somewhere. And now get to come back and meet all of you. So I'm incredibly excited about that. My intro and my video obviously spoil a little bit of my story. You all know how it ends now, but I'll go a little bit more in depth. For me, it all started in January of 2008, January 21st to be exact. I had just graduated high school. I graduated in spring of 2007. I was in Minnesota getting ready to, I was staying at home for a year and then looking at going out of state to school in the fall. I had been experiencing incredible back pain for quite some time, and the solution was epidural injections, and they were working great. And on January 21st, 2008, I went in to receive my 3rd and final injection, and I never walked out. I was 18 years old. It was 2 months before my 19th birthday, and my life completely changed. You know, a lot of you in this room, I'm sure there's a number of you that are seniors, and you plan for life after high school. And, you know, what do you do beyond this? And that's a time in all of our lives where we're figuring out who we are. We're coming into our own. And that's exactly what I was doing. And then all of a sudden I was doing it in a wheelchair as well. And that was really difficult as an 18-year-old girl sitting there, you know, the world's mine for the taking, and now all of a sudden I'm paralyzed. And I had absolutely no idea what that meant for my life moving forward. when it happened, you know, I couldn't do the simplest of things. I couldn't sit up in bed on my own. I couldn't dress myself. Like, my independence had been completely stripped from me, and somehow I had to find a way to bounce back. And I really had one of two options. One was I settled into my new disability, and the other one was I picked up and I moved forward with life and take it for what it is. And luckily, I have parents who are incredibly supportive, and those lovely mom and dads who will annoy you many times in your life are also your saving grace more often than not. And, you know, they pushed me. They didn't allow me to give up, and they supported me throughout the entire process. And, you know, that helped me a lot in those first few months. And then in April of 2008, almost 4 months later, 3.5 months to be exact, I found my way back to the pool. I have been a swimmer since I was 7. I absolutely love the sport of swimming. And before I say more, how many are swimmers in here? Please, let me see hands. Oh, so like 5, no, 10, 20? Okay, good amount. But I grew up swimming, and that was my life. Club swimming, year-round swimming. And when this happened, I was terrified that I would never get to swim again. And I had no idea what I would be able to do. You know, when this happened, I had people tell me the statistics of individuals who were injured with a spinal cord injury later in life. And I was 18 years old, and I had people tell me that I'd never graduate college, I'd never have a full-time job, I'd never be in a long-term relationship or get married, I'd never have a family of my own, and life expectancy is that of about 50, because depression and medical issues settle in, and that's kind of your lot in life after this, and that's what I was told. And so at that point, I kind of decided to fight back. And when I went to the pool and realized in April of 2008 that I could still swim, my world changed. Everything changed in that moment. And, you know, it speaks to how sport, you know, it transcends the medals and all of that, and what is sport truly about. And for me, swimming saved my life. And, you know, it's not just what swimming gave me in the pool, but what swimming gave me out of the pool. And when I got in the water that day, I was terrified. I had no idea about the Paralympics. I went to trials, which were at the University of Minnesota for the Beijing Games. My sister saw it in the newspaper and brought me to the pool. And when we got there, I realized what individuals with disabilities were actually capable of. Not all the things you can't do, but all the things that you can do. And I was so incredibly inspired. And that was a Saturday. And Monday I went to the pool. I remember telling my parents when I got home that I wanted to swim again. And they looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. They had no idea what I was talking about. They're like, Mal, you're just paralyzed. You want to do what? And I was like, I want to swim again. And so they brought me to the pool, and it was a little hard getting in the first time. I'm not going to lie. You know, before this happened, I was all legs, and it was just kind of conquering that fear and doing something that was it was as second nature as walking used to be for me. And then getting in and having no idea how my body would handle it. And when I got in that day, my world changed, and it allowed me to realize that I can still do everything I used to do, and I can still have the love for swimming and really everything else in life. You fast forward to October of 2008, fall of 2008, I went back to school, and when this happened, I said a lot of things that I would never do until I walked again. School was one of them. I didn't want to go into a classroom until I could literally step foot into a classroom. And, you know, throughout my months of swimming that spring, I realized that was kind of a silly thing for me to do. You know, I kind of realized I was setting barriers up, and there's no reason to do that. And there were all these things I wanted to do again, but there's no reason I can't do them in my wheelchair. So I enrolled in school. I went to community college near home because I was still in physical therapy every day. And, you know, when you're paralyzed, you also get that lovely license taken away from you. So I was 19 and having mommy and daddy drive me around. It was fantastic. But I went back nonetheless. And that fall was a big turning point for me. It was my time in understanding change in my own life and what we make of change. And, you know, we all deal with that on a daily basis. And at that point in my life, it was a very grand thing, but it taught me a lot about how I deal with it on the day-to-day basis. And ever since this happened, I've journaled. I've journaled this whole experience, and that October I wrote a journal about change, and I want to share that with you guys. So October 21st of 2008, exactly 9 months to the date after this happened, I wrote change. What exactly is change? Our lives are all about change. Everything is about change. Change isn't easy. It can bring both good and bad. It takes a lot of work to change for the better. And for some reason, most of us are afraid of change. Change brings many mixed emotions: excitement, fear, doubt, and hesitation. I have seen my life as I knew it for 18 years change in the blink of an eye. But every day I work towards turning that change into a positive. It isn't always necessarily easy, but it is what is best for me. I've worked every day to make the best of what has been handed to me. I've worked every day to put my anger behind me and take what I do have control of and move forward and live my life. One moment can change your life forever. In life, things change, people change, and as you grow, you too change. The past month, I have had to force myself to really accept that I'm a paraplegic. I've been in a wheelchair for 9 months now, but I've had a hard time accepting this as my new life. One moment really can change your life forever. Last year, this time, I never in a million years thought this is where my life would be now. But the reality is this is who I am. This past month, I have dealt with a lot. But for the first time since this happened, I feel like I am finally starting to accept it. Does it mean I'm giving up? Of course not. It means I've realized I can't sit around hoping and waiting things will happen. I can't sit around and say all the things I want to do when I get out of my wheelchair. I have to find a way to do them, chair or no chair. When bad things happen, you have to use those bad things in a positive manner. You have to embrace them and move forward with life, using them as motivation to strive for better. My life has changed in ways I would have never imagined, but this is no longer a nightmare I'm waiting to wake from. This is my blessing in disguise. I'm waiting, skipped ahead. It has allowed me to learn to live life in a whole new sense and realize that everything does happen for a reason. There are times we change our lives, and there are times life changes us, but everything does in fact happen for a reason. That fall, like I said, was incredibly hard for me. During that time, I was seeing people that I graduated high school with that knew what had happened, but I hadn't seen since this. I was going back to places in my hometown where I grew up, where every memory that I had was me walking, and I could no longer do the simple task of walking up a couple steps. And I was really trying to accept this and move forward, and most of all, continue to make goals for life and have dreams and aspirations and not settle in to my disability. You know, when I was going through that, I tried really hard to challenge myself, but it was hard because everyone was telling me all the things I would never do. And you know, we all have that. There's going to be people in our lives, possibly on a daily basis, that tell us all the things we won't do, or we're not capable of, or we're not good enough for. And when we come across that, we have to decide what we do with that. We can allow that to defeat us, or we can use it as motivation to go out and do just that. And for me, my personality is the latter. And when people were telling me all the things I couldn't do, of course, what did it do? It fueled me. I wanted to do just that. I didn't want to be a statistic that wasn't going to graduate from college, that wasn't going to have a job, that was just going to settle into my new quote-unquote disability. And since then I write for CNN now. I love writing, and this fall I started writing for CNN. I've learned how to ski. I was scuba diving with the sharks in the Bahamas 2 weeks ago. Like, I've gotten to experience life, but that isn't a life I ever thought I would be experiencing 5 years ago. And from that point, it was just me challenging myself to dream. And so I used my swimming as my way to do it. We all have different things we use. For some people, it's music, writing, athletics, whatever it might be, we all have our venue. And my venue is the water. And every time I got in the pool, I could measure my success by a time. And I could always challenge myself. One meet, I'd go one time and I'd say, okay, now I want to go faster. And it was my way of kind of like, seeing the improvements happen before my eyes. So, fast forward, there's 4 years of hard work and training that goes into this. Tons of ups and downs, and the sacrifices and things that I gave up to chase this goal of Paralympic gold medal. And I got to London and I had every duck in a row. When I went to London, I was prospect for 9 gold medals in 9 events. There's only 9 events you can swim in the Paralympic Games. I swam every single one of them. And I was riding off of my high in 2010 where I was almost undefeated at World Championships. I won 8 golds and 1 silver, and I was on a roll. And I got to London, and 3 days before opening ceremonies, the IPC reclassified me. Now in swimming for the Paralympics, there's classifications. To make it really simple, 1 through 10. 1's the most disabled, 10's the most able. I was a 7 my entire career until London. And I had spent 4 years pouring my heart and soul into this dream that everyone when I was paralyzed told me I would never get to chase. And it changed again. And I had to learn those lessons I learned 5 years ago again, but this time I didn't get to take 8, 9 months to kind of see how I felt about it and bounce back with life. I had 3 days. And when I went into that classification appointment that day, I thought everything was going to be fine. I thought there's no way I'm going to be an 8 because I'm already one of the most disabled people in my class as a 7. 8's, not a single one of them use a wheelchair. They all walk. Like, there's no way. And I went into the appointment, and sure enough, when it was done, they gave me my sheet of paper, and I was an 8. And it all changed. My competition schedule changed. My events that I had trained for 4 years changed. My competitors that I had never so much met, let alone raced in my life, had changed. And I had no idea what to expect. Not to mention, they all have significant more function than I did. And, we knew we could fight it, so for 3 days we fought it. Everyone within the USOC told me, just keep training as if you're racing the 100 backstroke as a 7 on day 1 of competition. So that's what I tried to do, and they did a board of appeal. And the day of opening ceremonies, I was getting ready, having my girly moment, getting ready, putting on my cute little Ralph Lauren outfit with a little hat, straightening my hair, and the USOC team manager for swimming came into my room and brought me to the USOC offices in the village. And they sat me down, and I was hoping in that moment that I would be told it all worked out and you're a 7 again. And of course, that's not how it went. They told me an hour before opening ceremonies I was an 8 and I wouldn't be racing the next morning. And it all changed. And in that moment, I wanted to give up so badly, more than I think I've ever wanted to give up throughout this process. And I felt defeated. I'd done everything. I'd put all the time and work into it. I was prepared. I planned for it. And this was the one thing I wasn't prepared and planned for. And I called my parents, and I talked to my parents and close friends, and everyone told me that I was still there. I was still in London. I was still in Team USA, and I still had a chance to race. And I talked to my coach, and he told me at this point it's all about your love for swimming, which it was all along, but really now there was really nothing else that could get taken from me. So fast forward 3 more days, and the 50-meter freestyle comes up. I knew that was my one chance at a medal. And I, during those few days, kind of came to the conclusion that I went to London with a goal of winning gold. And I was going to leave London with a gold medal. I didn't care what I had to do to get it. Somehow I was going to get it. And that morning I woke up and I tried to get in my routine. And, I went into the ready room, and prelims were a little rough. I went in, I always put on I have my Beats by Dr. Dre headphones, and I listened to, rap music and whatnot before I race, and put my headphones on, and I tried to drown everything out, but I can still see my competition in the room jumping up and down. And it was like the biggest mind game ever as I'm seeing them there, and I have nothing from my belly button down. And so at that point, I decided the only thing I could do is put the towel over my head and put my head in my lap. Like, my hands are on my head. I just decided I can tune them out with my music. I won't look at them, and it's my race, and this is what I'm here for. So prelims went all right. I went in seated 5th. No one again expected me to medal. Although, before finals, I went to go into the ready room, which is where they kind of stage us before we go out for our event. And there were coaches from all over the world. And they were waiting at the doors of the ready room, sending their swimmers in, but also waiting to wish me luck because the whole world was mad. Everyone was in uproar over what happened because it's every athlete's worst nightmare. And one of my teammates came over to me, pulled my headphones off my head, and he said to me, he said, "Mal, go shock the world." And in that moment, I knew it was just a 50. It was one length. Like, I can do this, right? I've trained for 4 years for this moment. And I got up on those blocks, and everything I had done those past 4 years, that's all that kept running through my head over and over and over and over again. And in those 30 seconds, somehow I went from 5th or 6th at the 25-meter mark to gold at the 50-meter mark. And it was all worth it. I knew that at that point, regardless of what people throw your way, regardless of how many people try to tear you down, regardless of how many people doubt you, you at the end of the day have the power to overcome that. And whether that's swimming or that's life, like, it's gonna happen, not just at the Paralympic Games. Heck, it might happen tomorrow. Like, you never know when it's coming. But the amazing thing is as I've experienced life, I've realized again and again and again that we have the ability to overcome. And, you know, I talk a lot about swimming, and I talk a lot about my quote-unquote disability, because to be quite honest, I don't see myself as disabled. But the reality is we all have it. Every single one of us in this room is disabled. Mine is incredibly visual. I sit in a wheelchair, like, you can't miss it. I'm paralyzed. But we all have that internal struggle, whether that be, you know, faith, whether that be our family life, or things that we're dealing with school, you know, friends, relationships, whatever it is. We all have things that can hold us back if we let them. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that you all have to realize is it's an internal battle, and that's maybe one of the hardest battles to overcome. But if you set your mind to it and you allow yourself to kind of open your eyes to the world around you and reflect in on your own life, you can overcome it. And for me, that's kind of the biggest lesson, I think, in all of this that I've learned. You know, I'm paralyzed, but before my paralysis, I was far more disabled than I've ever been after my paralysis. I've done way more in my life in these past 5 years than I ever did before my wheelchair. And so many people look at me and they think, oh, she's disabled, you know, there must be all these things she can't do. But I do it all. And the best part is I enjoy every minute of it. And, you know, another thing that I want to share with you guys is, growing up, I'm the baby of 3 girls. I'm a daddy's girl to the T. And I had a very incredibly supportive dad and mom. And every night when my dad would tuck us into bed, we'd say our bedtime prayers, and then he would tell my sisters and I, "You're the best, you can make a difference, and you can change the world." I don't know where he got it. I make fun of him because, you know, we're his 3 daughters. Of course we're the best. Like, he's our dad. He has to say that, right? Like, it's kind of a biased opinion, but, you know, after that, you can make a difference, you can change the world. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't understand it. You know, I was kind of like, oh, okay, Dad, you know, as I got older, I'm sure I got annoyed and was like, just let me go to bed. You know, we all go through those stages. And then this happened, and it kind of forced me to think about life a lot. And I thought about those words, and I think it's important, you know, you guys are young. You're ranging 14 to 18. But just because you're young doesn't mean you can't change the world. And you have a life ahead of you. And it's not like you don't have to be the CEO of a company or a politician to make a difference and change the world. It's the little actions we do every day, the little things that add up. And if enough of us do those little things, it adds up, and as a society, we make a difference and we change the world. And, you know, my platform has obviously changed these past 5 years. My story is more public. I get the chance to speak to schools and speak to guys like you and share that story. But my story doesn't mean anything if I can't leave an impact on you and help you guys go out there and do just that and make a difference and change the world. And I'm fortunate to have a very, very supportive dad that gave me those words. But I think at the end of the day, that's what life's all about. You know, it's about getting up every day and how we seize each day and what we do with our opportunities. I want to leave time for Q&A because you guys are a smaller audience. So I want to read one more journal before I am done. And this is fast forwarding. I wrote it on my 5-year anniversary, which was just this past January. And as I read it, you'll get the gist of it. But I've made the decision every year to celebrate. And I celebrate on that anniversary. I don't grieve what I lost that day because, as I said, I think I gained a lot more than what I lost since that day. So I choose to celebrate. And I wrote this actually the night before my 5-year anniversary. And I wrote, as I reflect back on these past 5 years and my anniversary that comes tomorrow when I wake, I find myself at a loss for words. I don't know how to even begin to go about explaining my feelings towards these past 5 years and that day. Although I do know this, tomorrow is my day of celebration. Tomorrow is my day to celebrate life and everything it has to offer, because although I had something taken from me 5 years ago tomorrow, they didn't strip me from my ability to live. As I was on the mountain today, I felt a sense of freedom I've never felt before. I got in a monoski and I went up to 10,000 feet and I shredded it down the mountain. At one moment, I found myself skiing down the mountain towards the group, and I was smiling from ear to ear and just tears of joy, pure joy. In that moment, I felt truly alive. I was skiing down a mountain, and I was free in every sense of the word. I was free from the anger I held on to for so long. I was free from the fear of what this meant for my life moving forward. I was free from the uncertainty. I was free from the what ifs and why me's. I was in a place of pure joy and happiness for where I'm at in life. And most of all, I was at a place where I felt love. Love for myself, love for things that I'm passionate about, and love for life. It is a weird thing to try to explain to people. I have people ask me questions about what that day back in 2008 changed about me. And although I continually try to put it into words, I don't know if that's something that I will ever be able to fully explain to someone. I don't know how you can even begin, quite honestly. I see my family starting to move forward. I see my life and where I'm at, and sometimes I sit and reflect and it feels as though it's all flashing back like a slideshow. This is not the life I planned for myself. This isn't the life that I envisioned, but it is a life that I'm incredibly grateful for. I feel lucky for that day in 2008. That day and the days to follow tested my faith, my strength, and my zest for life. But throughout these 5 years, I've been given the ability to appreciate life in ways that some may never get a chance to, and for that, I am grateful. My mom gave me a card that says it all too perfectly. I reminded myself that there's no point in going through it if I don't move past it. If I keep replaying it, reliving it, there's no reward. The reward has to be in the letting go, the absence of giving it more time, more meaning, more value. The reward is the clarity of now, the freedom of now, the lightness of now. Now is my beautiful reward. So tomorrow is my beautiful reward and the days that follow. Life is my beautiful reward as I continue to chase my dreams and celebrate life and enjoy the simple joys of the world. I'm going to end on that, but I want to do Q&A with you guys. I think you all leave at 10:40-ish. Sure? Okay. So I'm an open book. If you haven't caught on yet, ask me anything and everything you want to ask me. Just speak loudly. Maybe raise hands. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Oh, come on. Anyone? Bueller? Too young. Oh, yeah. Oh, all right. We got one hand over here and one up here.
What went wrong with your procedure?
That's a really good question. I wish I knew. Sorry, bad joke. That happens. Quite honestly, we don't know. I walked in that day, and 1 minute I was laying on the table on my stomach, bending my legs back and forth, and the next minute my legs dropped like a ton of bricks, and I never walked out. Nothing changed. We really never got an answer, which was kind of tough, but 5 years later, I've learned to have my peace with that, you know. Closure is kind of one of those things where you give yourself your own closure, and in my situation, that's what I've kind of had to do. So I don't really know. There's a lot of different theories, but, you know, that's that. Sorry, I wish I had a better answer. Yeah.
What's the Olympic Village like?
The Olympic Village is absolutely unreal. I actually have my medal. It's really heavy. I carry it in a sock, but I took it out of that. So this is a lovely gold medal. I'll let you guys see it when we're done if you want. But the village is so cool. You know, the Paralympic and Olympic movement is all about the world coming together. And you watch it and you kind of get the idea of that. But then when you're a part of it and you see it firsthand, it's absolutely amazing. You know, you're in the village, you're in the cafeteria, you're in the, you know, in the dining hall, and the world comes together. It doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak, what's going on with, you know, political things around the world or whatever. The world's one in that couple weeks, and the athletes, you really get that sense of it. And, you know, there's the language barriers, of course, but everyone's there for the same thing. Everyone's there because they had that little childhood dream and they chased it their entire life and dedicated years and years to training, and they made it. And so there's a big, you know, there's obviously that big excitement, and, you know, just the energy is absolutely unreal. But I think that was maybe one of my favorite parts of the games, is being in the village and being in like the dining hall and just kind of seeing everyone over time. It's like the countries are separated in their areas because they're eating their foods, and then as time goes on and competition ends, you know, it's no longer like Team USA, Australia, Canada, like China, like it's everyone is mingled, and that's really cool to see. Anyone else? Yes?
I'm curious about the reclassification that comes 3 days before. What had you accomplished something that blew everyone's mind as a 7-rated person that they put you up to 8?
Honestly, I don't really know what happened with that. It's, you know, like a lot of things in life, things can get very political. And unfortunately, I think I fell in those cracks. I was prospect for 9 of 9 gold medals. No one had ever done that before, Olympic or Paralympic. Phelps, when he did his massive take on with the gold medals, it was 8. So it would have made history on both sides. And I'm not sure what the reasoning was, to be quite honest. I was a 6 when I was very, very first classified, and I requested to have myself moved up to a 7 because I wanted competition. I wasn't in the rankings as a 7 at all. 6 months later, I went to my first meet as a 7, and I broke my first world record. And from that point, I said I wanted to win a gold, and then I started doing better. And it kind of goes to, when you reach one goal, what do? You know, I set goals in my athletic career, my personal life, and we're all gonna hopefully reach them at some point. And when you reach it, are you just okay with it? Or do you kind of keep pressing on and keep wanting more? And for me, I always want more. And that's what happened with my swimming, from the goal of 1 gold to then continually saying, oh, I broke a record. Okay, that was exciting. Now I want another one. You know, it's kind of the hunger. And by the time I got to London, I think I kind of like had hit the top. You know, prospect for 9 of 9. There's really not a whole lot else you can do at that point. And I don't really know what happened, but at the end of the day, the reclassification, like I said, it taught me a lot about my swimming. It taught me a lot about myself as a person. And it, that 1 gold medal, I think, means a heck of a lot more than 9 would have, because of what I had to overcome just 3 days before to get it. And it was far from easy, and I think there were a lot of people that would have said it was okay to give up at that point because it was so absurd. And, you know, of course I didn't want to. So my gold medal is, it's my baby. It's my baby. Yeah.
Off the subject, do you drive yet? And if not, do you working on it?
I drive, yes. I got my license again when I was 20. It was so exciting. My mom and dad didn't have to drive me. It was awesome. That was actually the hardest thing, having that stripped. You know, you're 18 years old, you're going out on your own, and then it's like all of a sudden this happened. Oh, and wait, mommy and daddy are driving you everywhere, and you have no independence. So I started driving, and it was awesome. I drive with a hand control. You can put in any car after the market, and my first start, I felt like I was driving a race car or a video game. You know, it didn't feel real because I was so used to using my feet. It was a little hard to get used to. But I do drive, and for work, I have a tough job. I'll say that. No, that's sarcasm. I am a swimmer, and I have fantastic sponsors, and I get to speak to people like you guys. I'm writing for CNN. I was in the city yesterday, and I had meetings about starting to write my book proposal. Most people have ghostwriters. For whatever reason, I've decided I want to do this on my own. A little bit crazy, maybe, I don't know. We'll find out. So I'm starting to now work on the 130-page process of a book proposal. And then I also just filmed a documentary down in Bimini in the Bahamas a couple weeks ago that will come out in the fall. So I keep myself busy with those things, but I love it. It's not conventional, but it's a blast. Anyone else? Yeah.
How many hours a week do you swim?
Right now, I'm still kind of like building in. The last like 2.5 years going into London was like my max in terms of what I was doing, and I trained about 4 to 5 hours a day, so 6 days a week. Sunday's my day off. There's certain points throughout the season where my coach doesn't give me Sundays off. But my workouts, maybe an hour, so it's not horrible. It's just kind of get in, have a feel for the water, and maybe do a little cardio. But it's tiring. Some days I miss my legs because I want to do like a kick set or mix it up. My arms get a little tired, but I love it. So it makes it easier to do when you love what you do. Yeah.
Are you training for the next Olympics?
I am. Yes, I'm still training for swimming. I'm planning to go on to Rio. I ultimately would love to go on to 2020. I would love to do 3 games, but that's a long ways out, so we'll see. I also learned how to ski this winter, and I fell in love with it. I think like my 6th day in a monoski, I was doing an alpine race camp and racing through gates. I'm a little bit competitive by nature, so of course, when I do something, I want to go all the way. So I've thought about after the Sochi Games come to a close and seasons start back up, maybe looking at starting to race as well for skiing. So I don't know, maybe there'll be a winter games somewhere in the whole mix, somewhere down the line. Yeah?
You continue to be classified as an 8?
Good question. Will I continue to be classified as an 8? Hopefully not. I think there's a good chance before Rio at some point over the next 3.5 years, I'll get brought back down to a 7 because it's just, so for instance, when I said everyone in my class walks, the girls I were racing, majority of my class is partial single arm amputees. So they're amputated from like right above their elbow on one arm and they have everything else. So you can imagine starts, turns, all those things. And some of the girls, like one of the Russian girls, she's like 5'11" and has legs for days and, wingspan just the same. She's missing, just the lower half of her arm, and going up against her is a little intimidating. But I think there's a really good chance I'll get brought back down, which means Rio, I think I have a little unfinished business as an athlete. So we'll see what happens. But I think I'll always train as if I'm an 8 regardless, because I know like that's the worst case scenario. So then I'm always prepared just in case they throw me another wild card. That's kind of the thought. Yeah.
Is your coach specific to Paralympics?
That's a good question. It's a he. He actually doesn't really work with a lot of disabled swimmers. He's a USA Swimming coach, and he worked with one individual who was a Paralympian in 2008. She's a 10, and so that 10 class, like I said, they're the most able. You really wouldn't know she's disabled, quite honestly. I think she has one leg a little shorter, and she has an ankle joint that didn't develop the whole way, and she's missing like a toe. That's the 10 class. Very minimal, but enough that it still affects. And so he's coached her, but for the most part, I train with able-bodied swimmers. After this happened, I actually did a season of Division I swimming at a private school in North Carolina. And I was obviously the only disabled individual on that team. But, it's really interesting because I thought it was going to be like a hard thing, but it's not a whole lot different. Even from the athlete and coaching perspective, it's, you look at the strengths and you just build off of them. And so for me, I can't kick, but I do everything else, obviously. So you know, he doesn't have a ton of experience, but he's coached for 36 years. He's in his 60s, so he's been around the block a few times in the coaching world, and he's been awesome. He's like a second dad to me. So, yeah. One more question, guys. Better make it a good one, or not. It's cool too. Okay. Thank you so much.